Hello there everyone, I'm RNG and today we're going to take a look at my first Nintendo Switch review, which is probably going to get copyright strike claimed faster than you can say. Cardboard cutouts as a control scheme are a better idea than 4K gaming. Mario Odyssey. All of the personality and style that we love from the past Mario titles is here, but now there's a more streamlined and a more smooth experience to the gameplay. I have to admit, starting with a title that's this big and has been so fun to play for me is kind of challenging to review. Finding anything to critique has been a challenge for some of the best reviewers that are already out there, and with Nintendo handing out review copies to so many popular YouTubers, it's kind of easy to feel like some people may have been a bit biased towards it. But honestly, the only negatives that I've found are so small in the scheme of things that I'm right there with the rest of the hype train on this game. The plot is very simple. I mean, this is a children's Nintendo game. It was hardly going to be Metal Gear Solid in terms of storytelling. Bowser's kidnapped Peach again, and this time he's travelling the world in an attempt to steal all of the things that make a wedding painfully middle class. This time, as I'm sure you're aware, Mario is accompanied by Cappy, a sentient talking hat that provides Mario with the power to possess the various enemies within the game world. Cappy is also on a mission to save his sister Tiara, who was kidnapped by Bowser in an attempt to make Little Miss Stockholm Syndrome over here more traditional wedding material, I guess. From here, the story is the straight up Mario affair, and by that I mean there isn't really a plot. It's all about having those sort of near-miss scenarios with Bowser where you're just about to catch him up and then for some reason he delays you and you have to go through several more worlds. The game took me a comfortable 6 hours of steady play to complete, but that was just the tip of the iceberg. Where older Mario titles had us collecting stars as the game's goal, this game has us collecting moons. The difference between them both is apparently that we only needed 150-ish stars to complete Mario 64, whereas Mario Odyssey comes armed with about 800 moons. Now rest assured, you only need a small fraction of that to complete the main story, but it's going to be a bit of a time investment. Now on the plus side, we don't start the level over every single time we get a star like we used to in the past. Instead, we have these larger, more open layout levels where moons are literally hidden everywhere, like some hyperactive dev let their child play with the mouse for a few seconds during each level's creation. Some of these moons are genuinely a challenge to get, and as such felt kind of rewarding when you did eventually make that awkward jump or even manage to get the moon via an unintended way. However, some of them are either just in your face or, even worse, purchasable by in-game currency, which just seemed to devalue the experience it had for me. I could comment on just how pretty this game is, but you can see that for yourself hopefully. Maybe it's because I'm a man who's grown up with consoles his entire life, but the Switch genuinely confuses me with how well it runs things in both docked and portable mode. I've noticed no frame rate drops whatsoever whilst playing in either mode, but I have found that the way shadows are handled in portable mode was a little strange. Depending on things like particle effects and particular grass and foliage, sometimes you had this sort of mesh effect for a shadow. It was a bit weird. The game's theming and colour makes things pop and stand out like it's the 1960s all over again, and the soundtrack is a delightful mix of this retro feel throwback to the franchise and these new, fully orchestrated mixes that give it a true experience and personality with this jazz style that I just adore. I've commented before on how adorable I find some of the creatures in this game, in particular the dancing watering can-like creatures from the Wooded Kingdom. I even went as far as to give their dance a go live on stream at one point, to the dismay of my entire audience. And as a final unexpected mention, the costumes. Holy hell, I had no idea that I would need to collect every bit of gear in this game purely so I could dress up Mario in an array of outfits. My personal favourites include Pirate Mario body with dapper city dweller's hat, and also Terrifying Clown Mario. Honestly, I had no idea that the outfits would make this game so much more of a solid experience for me. And I think a large part of this got into the got to collect all the things mentality. But it also seems deceptively easy at first, and then as you unlock more and more outfits, the time requirement slowly seems to ramp up, trapping you forever in this catwalk Mario hall of fashion. Like I said at the start of this video, it was hard to criticise anything in this game. While I did have a few issues that I managed to identify, they are more so like personal bugbears of my own, more than anything else. The first was the UI and the text. It's all very white and shiny, which is great, until you're being given a tutorial-like section near the start of the game where it's white text on a white waterfall. Good luck reading that. This happened a couple of times, and I'm not sure whether it's just my own faulty vision that was giving me issues, but it certainly seemed to stand out a couple of times. The second was difficulty, or lack thereof. Now I know what you're immediately thinking, this is a Mario game, it's aimed at kids between like 8 and 13, and it's not going to be difficult, it's not going to be Dark Souls. But recently I went back and I played Super Mario Galaxy, which was for the Wii, and I have to admit that the game genuinely had me by the balls at some point. I think the main issue that I might have might not be because of Mario, but it seems to stem from the AAA titles of this generation. What is the punishment for death these days? In Mario Odyssey you lose some coins. Coins are everywhere. They're used as a currency in the stores to buy the mentioned vanity items and costumes. Not once did I remotely come close to losing enough coins to risk what I assume would have been a game over situation. So realistically, all you lose by dying is the last minute of your life before you fell off the thing and had to restart that section. Tied in with this is the amount of extra hand-holding that this game seems to do. Before I started the actual gameplay, it asked me if I wanted to play normally, or if I wanted to have an arrow that pointed me in the right direction. It also made the dubious claim that I would bounce back faster from death, which I assume means that death is even less of a trivial thing than it already is. Then, in between each game world, we are treated to a little segment where Cappy and Mario talk in the ship that they travel in. It's called the Odyssey, by the way, I probably should have mentioned that. This was a fun section to read through, and at first I assumed it was to mask any kind of loading time that the game may have had. It turned out that that wasn't the case, it's just a cute little extra where they talk to each other about the next world that they're about to visit. The first time this happens, however, the game forces itself to open a how to play style guide where you are shown literal press A to jump style animations. Now I get that this is a game that's aimed at children, but the first level functions perfectly well as a tutorial for all of these things. And as I think back to Mario 64, the game that I would have played when I was 9 to 12 years old, it just started. It gave you a wide open space to learn at your own pace without being all, "Here's a manual, can you read this for me please?" I've seen a few people mention the motion controls and how they felt a bit tacked onto the gameplay in general. I used all of 2 moves which I'm about to demonstrate for you now. The first makes Cappy spin, and is used about 3 times in the entire game purely to make flowers bloom. To do it, you do this thing. Control pads, flick to the side. Control pads, flick to the side. It's a little dance move, just with shit Joy-Cons. The second is the hurry the hell up move, which makes Mario climb slightly faster. To do that, you whack off the control pads like you do in every Wii game ever. I've had no issue with either of these motions, though I probably did look somewhat like I was having a seizure because I was playing with the Pro Controller, whereas it was clearly designed to be played with the Joy-Cons. The game boasts a 2-player mode that over Christmas and New Year's some friends of mine gave a try. It was described to me as something akin to torture, where one person gets to control Mario and the other uses Cappy as some kind of mouse cursor-like thing. Although they seemingly played the game through in 2 long play sessions, it seems that the pair both suffered from minor hand cramps by having to use the Switch's tiny Joy-Cons in such a focused way for such a long time. The game's boss fights were also really entertaining, even if they did follow the stale formula of doing the same thing 3 times in a row to achieve victory. The creatures themselves were amusing and very well characterised, with Bowser's Koopa Kids being nowhere to be seen, and instead an airship of rabbits being the sub-antagonists. There was also a rather surprising boss fight, with something that looked insanely pretty and almost like it belonged in a much more mature or darker themed game. This game was like a huge nostalgic hug for me from Nintendo. I had the perfect control scheme of Mario 64, the occasional retro 2D section that made me feel old, and a style and theme that genuinely stood out amongst most of 2017's lineup for me. On another channel that I edit for on occasion, I gave Mario Odyssey my personal Game of the Year spot. And while I will admit I was torn between this and Persona 5 for that position, eventually it was the sheer fact that I keep hopping back on this game for 10 more minutes in that game world that eventually completely won me over. Since this is my first formal review on the channel, I don't really have an established parameter to say this is 7 out of 10 or this is 3 out of 5 or this is a giraffe. I will say that it still definitely wins my Game of the Year for last year. But tell me, what did you guys all think? Have you lost hours and hours in this game like I have, or am I just really easily attracted to something that seems to be a weird collectible marathon? Holler at me in the comments below, or on my lovely new Twitter page, and tell me what you think. Until next time though, I hope you've enjoyed this more critical look at Mario Odyssey. Like I said, it was really hard to criticise a game that I absolutely adore, but I've done my best to sort of nitpick at a few issues that I thought were there. I've got more videos coming soon, and also I'm doing Twitch streams of South Park starting very shortly. Link for those things are both in the description, and until next time, be sure to subscribe for some more RNG. Thank you very much.